الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم. Alhamdulillah, it's been a while since we last recorded a podcast, but we are now back with our teacher, Shaykh Abu Ja'far Al-Hanbali. And welcome back, Shaykh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So I would like to mention that recently the teacher of Shaykh Abu Ja'far, he passed away, and he was the scholar and the Hanbali Faqih, Shaykh Abu Anas Muhammad ibn Ahmad Ar-Rashid, rahimahullah ta'ala. And what we wanted to do was to take this opportunity to speak about him, and we hope that by reflecting on his life, inshallah, the believers will benefit from it. Now, Shaykh, could you perhaps tell us about your teacher and his life, and if you would also then please share how you came in touch and how you ended up studying with the Shaykh?
Okay, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. I had first come across Shaykh Abu Anas Muhammad ibn Ahmad Ar-Rashid some years ago. I believe it was 1443 or 1444. I was in some durus on fiqh to do with the Zad and the Ulum for review with Sheikh Khalid Subhi As-Sayyid. And another group of brothers that I knew that were students of knowledge contacted me and said, you should be part of this group as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so they brought me into another group of brothers who were about to start the kitab, Manar us-Sabil, Sharh Dalil, by Ibrahim al-Dawayan, who died 1353 in Arabia. But the kitab was being taught by Shaykh Muhammad Ahmad Ar-Rashid. And they said, you should come into these classes. We're starting the kitab, it'd be really good. And these were students of knowledge that I knew through other students of knowledge. And they had mentioned to me that he had been a student of the late Imam Ahmad Al-Shami, who died 1414. So I go into the class, and it was a remarkable class because I'd not studied Manar as-Sabil, Sharh Dalil formally. I'd used it as a reference text. I'd used the Dalil as a reference text. And so I come into this gathering with the Sheikh, and he is from Douma in Rif Dimashq, which is northern Syria. And those provinces are majority Hanbali. So Harasta, Douma, Ruhayba, Ad-Dumi, some of those other areas, most of Rif Dimashq, that's the dominant thing of what they are. So I was exposed to his teaching style and the teaching style of Rif Dimashq there. And it took us a number of years to go through Manar as-Sabil to unpack the text. His style of teaching, like with the Shamis, as we discussed before, was to teach a portion of the text. And then after teaching the text for 45 minutes, a little bit more, he would then ask for questions. And then he would, for the next class, he'd have us read the metin. So then when the next class came, he would have us read the metin of the Dalil, the underlying text. Have us read that. Then we'd read the commentary with the metin, known as Tahqiq al-Masail, which is freeing up and investigating the Masail. So you read the metin, and then you read the text with the metin, which gives sense and greater brevity and outcome to it. And so this is the style that he had us doing. And it took us about 4 years to get through, 4.5 years to complete the Manar as-Sabil, after which time he immediately brought us into Mardini's commentary on the Rahbiyah. And so he decided this needs to be done. because it was the normal habit that he did when he did the text. And so we went through that text, and it was remarkable, just his teaching style. He also made it a point to, at times, to check in with us as students. So we'd be there in the class. Before the class started, he would ask for us to unmute our mic, and he'd ask us how we were doing. Like, how are you doing? Where are you based? So he'd ask, like, where are you based? And where are you from? So when he asked me where I was resident, I told him, and he said, yeah, but where are you from? So I said, oh, well, originally Aswan, there's a small area within Aswan, it's a village, blah, blah. And he said, oh, I have a teacher, an Arabic grammar teacher from there. And he started speaking the dialect, which is our dialect. So he just tried to make everyone feel really comfortable and to feel really welcome in the class.
And also by getting to know the students, is it also by him taking it serious? Because there are some open classes where people do attend, but they're not necessarily known to the Sheikh himself.
Yes, this is also an issue, and to have the relationship, to have this ta'alluq with your teacher, this connection is important, because having that connection with the teacher to where he understands about you, where you're resident, where you are. So if there are any interruptions to the internet or anything like that, he understands, okay, yeah, this person's here, this person's there. And he also understands about our jobs. So sometimes some of us, I didn't have any ambient noise at my house because I'm there just listening. But for others who, one of the brothers runs a restaurant, but he would be intently listening to the durus. But he runs a restaurant, so there's like ambient noise.
Right.
So he would have to sometimes mute his mic, and then sometimes he couldn't read from the matan. So Abu Tariq Muhammad Hassan is the one that would read from the matan, but he did cabbing, so he had less ambient noise. So he would read the matan, and then he'd read the sharh. But the other brothers, sometimes he could do it, brother Ibrahim, but sometimes he's like, listen, it's really busy right now in the restaurant. So it's like, I don't think I should read from the actual sharh. The Sheikh's like, okay, that's fine. So he understood where we were based, where we were from, our backgrounds and knowledge. And he would ask us questions about, okay, well, what kutub did you do? How many kutub did you, okay, well, what did you, who'd you study from, and things like that. So he would always ask to get to just a better understanding of us as students. And then he would also check your comprehension. So he would call on you by name in class. So we'd go through a masala. He said, so he would then look, and their custom in Rif Damashq is the kunya is put after your given name. So I'm Abu Ja'far, but my given name is Hassan. So he would say Hassan Abu Ja'far. So he'd call on me and say, what about this? So I would try to answer the masala in inheritance. He said, okay, if this person dies, it's the mother, that someone dies and he leaves behind a wife, a daughter, and an aunt. What's the inheritance? So to get you in the process of answering questions, to understanding the fiqh behind things, and to get you used to answering questions. He said, because the point of us learning is so that you not only learn the fiqh, but that you can impart it to other people.
Allah.
And the ability to impart it to other people is to understand the text. So we always had comprehension questions over the particular portion that we read. We always had comprehension questions. Either we would ask, or he would ask us comprehension questions. Okay, so I've read through this text on wudu. Does anyone know, does this nullify wudu or not? And then each one of us, he'd ask us. Right. He'd ask us different questions over a bab that we went through. And we didn't proceed to the next bab until he felt confident that we understood that bab. And he even told us, he said, we're going to come together for inheritance. And he said, everyone bring a pencil and a paper. He said, do not use your phones. He said, if you can do it on pencil and paper, you can do it anything else. So we'd bring like a pencil and a paper, and then we would be asked specific masail. And then we try to go through it. So we had a section of the class to read it. One of the things that's important as well about the qira' of the matan and the sharh is by reading the text to the Shaykh, is he also points out variations in the text. So if a text could be read as yuktab or yaktub, or if a text could be read, like sometimes someone, like there was one incident in the Manar where we were reading through the text and one of the brothers read it a certain way. And he says, it's actually not this, it's this. He says, many people that read the text make this mistake.
Interesting.
And it causes them to have problems later down the line when they read further in the same kitab under another bab, because they've built a misunderstanding on that section. And it was to do with the hukum on the khuf. And he said, many people, because they misread this, they come to the understanding that wiping over anything like the khuf, they understand that it could be anything. So people start thinking that the modern dress socks or the sports socks that don't reach the level of the hukum, they think that they can do this. So then when they get to the other part of the bab, at the end of the bab, they're confused. And he said this happens because of the improper reading of that section like that.
And is this perhaps also due to the differences in the manuscript, or because they're printed in the wrong way?
Sometimes they're printed, sometimes there's printing errors. And he pointed this out as well. He said, so one of us, because one or two of the brothers that joined the class, when he started the class, he says, this is the printing of the book you should have. And this is the printing of Merdini that you should have. And one brother, he came in, I think he misplaced his one day, and he brought another one, and he misread the text. And the Sheikh said, no, that's not how the text is read. It's read like this. And he said, because there's a missing word in your text. He says, get out your pencil and cross that word out. That's not in the text, right? Because the manuscript is this, right? So this is also very important in understanding how the text is supposed to be vocalized, which is the dabt, the dabt, how the text is to be vocalized, and then how the text is to be understood. And Manar us-Sabil, what's unique about that text is the year that text came out, or not long after that text came out, the first print run, the international print run, the Sheikh was reading that to Imam Ahmad Al-Shami, like that first run, international run. So he has a very, very intimate knowledge of not just the Dalil, but like the Manar us-Sabil. He has a very intimate knowledge of that text. Very intimate.
And Shaikh Ahmad Al-Shami was not merely a teacher of the madhab, but he was also one of the Shaykh of the Hanbalis of his age.
Yeah, one of the Imams of his time. And so when he's having this text read out, this is the first time a text on its international run like this is being read in the class. This is the first time it's being read out. And so he has this intimate knowledge of the kitab that he's built over years and years and years. And so when we finished the Manar, we then also do a maqra of the Dalil.
Oh, right.
And he checks our understanding of the metin of the Dalil, the tahqiq of a masail in the Dalil, because there's a few masail in the Dalil of how you read the text, where people can make a slip. Like there's one where a number is mentioned in the text, and he said some people think that it's a mistake in Arabic grammar, but this is incorrect because it's wudu. It's under the section under wudu, and it lists the sunan of wudu. And the number normally if the number is feminine, because in Arabic even the numbers are feminine and masculine, and muthanna and mudhakkar. So if the ism, if the thing in question being discussed is mudhakkar, if it's masculine, then the number must be mu'annath. But if it's the opposite, it's the other way, right? But it looked like, maybe this is an error in the manuscript. He says, no, this is in the manuscript. It's because the reason why that number is mu'annith is because it is in reference to wudu. He said, so what's the missing, what is the missing damir? Like, what's the missing pronoun? It's like, it must be who or he. It's like, yeah, That's why it's like they said, a lot of people think it's a mistake. He said, but they're mistaken.
Oh.
They're mistaken. So it's just little delicacies like that in understanding the text. So when we had that maqra, we went through the text from cover to cover, and then he gave us the Senate, and he explained in detail how he came across the text, when he started the text, where he learned the text. And he said it took him 8 years to get through the Dalil and the underlying perfections in the text. Because how he was taught it is he was taught the metin first, and then he was taught the sharh. But what he did is he said, I'm going to do the sharh with the metin. And it took us just about 5 years to get it, and then the maqra after. So it's like really just 5 years going on, maybe 6. But to get a really good understanding.
And the Manar us-Sabil is basically the commentary upon Dalil ut-Talib.
This is correct. It's the commentary on Dalil ut-Talib. But the interesting thing about the text is, in the introduction, Imam Ibrahim al-Dawayan, he said that he's based a lot of the framework of the text in terms of hashing it out, fleshing it out, on the Mukhtasar of al-Muqni', which is the Zad.
Okay.
Which then brought up the question, because I asked the Sheikh one day, I said, it's said that there is a sharh that Imam Ibrahim al-Dawayan has on a hashia on the road or on the Zad. Is this it? Because I've never found one yet. And he said, it's possible this could be it, because he based so much of his commentary on, although it's a sharh on the Dalil, it may have been that he used the Zad as like a framework and did a sharh on that and did Manar as-Sabil as well. So it's under one thing. And the kutub that are mentioned in the biography, in the introductory section by the author, he mentions what books like Kafi, Mukhtasar al-Muqni'. He says most of the masail, the way that he's laid out the masail and commentating, he's used Mukhtasar al-Muqni' as like a blueprint. So we kind of got an opening taste of that. And then the Shaykh has started to, Shaikh Ahmad Ar-Rashid, he started to give us a exposition on Urul al-Murbi'. So we started looking at Urul al-Murbi'. And it was, what's distinct about the discussion about Manar as-Sabil and Urul al-Murbi' is his comparison of them. Because he said to me at one point, because I said, I've gotten all the way up to the Kafi. So should I build my methodology, my usul, on the Kafi or the road? He said, well, you should build on the road, which caused this question in my mind, because I'd been taught up until the Kafi by my teachers. Okay, well, does this mean that I'm leaving what my teachers taught me, the Kafi, to do this? He said, well, the road, its usul are built upon the Kafi. Think about how many times the Kafi is quoted within it. Look at the layout of the road. You're not leaving one thing to the other. It's understanding the synthesis of it. And then when I started reading the road, and then alongside of the Kafi, when I went back to it alongside of the Kafi, I was like, yeah, it is kind of, and it unlocked additional things within the Kafi that had previously been obscure or hidden to me. So the Shaykh Muhammad Ahmad Ar-Rashid had a tremendous amount of insight, because he had studied so long, and the level of scholars that he'd studied with were of such a capacity that he really had a great love of teaching fiqh. He loved teaching fiqh, but there's certain kutub that he loved teaching. Ar-Road was one of them. And Manar as-Sabil with the Dalil, that was like one. He just loved teaching those kutub. He just loved them.
And Sheikh, even though the Sheikh, his background curriculum of fiqh studies is the Shami curriculum, so his main book or text of ifta will be the Dalil or the Manar. However, if you're upon the curriculum of Egypt or Arabiya, this will be mainly Zad al-Mustaqni and Urul al-Murbi'. Now, he has done both of them basically. And how does that work? Does that cause any differing opinions?
I would say that having, now with me having done both, I think it gives you a better understanding of both ends of the position, because we discussed before, there's a discussion among scholars over what is superior. Is it the Dalil or the Zad?
Right.
And we've reached a point now within what's happening that the scholars are now treating Nail al-Ma'arib, which is At-Taghlabi, who's a Duman. It's Taghlabi's commentary on the Dalil. They're treating that like a metin now, even though it's a sharh. They're treating it like a metin. And they're starting to treat Ulum like a metin. When you look at these texts, what you're seeing from them is Ar-Rawd al-Murbi' and the underlying text of Zad covers way more masail. Because of the way that it was written, it was in a classroom setting where the students were asking questions as they're going through the text. And it's being read to Imam al-Buhuti rahimahullah. So because of that, you're producing way more masail, you're answering way more questions. Dalil ut-Talib was extracted from Imam al-Karimi rahimahullah. It's extracted from his commentary, which is Ghayat al-Muntaha. It's his commentary known as the Ghaya. That commentary on the Muntaha by al-Futuhi, he then takes from the Muntaha Dalil ut-Talib. That's the Dalil ut-Talib is basically the mukhtasar of that. Well, what is the Muntaha? The Muntaha is the gathering of the Tanqih and the Muqni'. It's the gathering of that. So what you get with the Dalil is kind of what he's gathered between his commentary on the Muntaha, which is the commentary on the Muqni' and the Tanqih by al-Mardawi. So, but that was written in isolation when he wrote it. And then after he wrote it, he sent it to many different scholars who complimented it on its brilliance. There's like more than 14 scholars, many of them Muraja, who commented on its brilliance. Then he taught the text. Well, that's a completely different way to how al-Buhuti takes the Zad and then starts teaching it with commentary in a class or an environment of class. It's completely different. Whereas the Dalil is written in isolation and then it's taught to his class. Right? It's different to how it is. And so you get different things from the text. Like, for example, the Zad, the Masail in Fiqh are not numbered. They're just mentioned. Okay, the Arkan of Hajj are, and then it just mentions them. In the Dalil, they're always numbered. The Zad has a rhyming quality. The Dalil does not. The Zad has more Masail, both mafhum, like understood Masail, and external Masail. The Dalil does not. The Zad has some ijtihadat and ikhtiyarat of Imam al-Hajjawi, about 33 of them. The Dalil only has a couple of areas which are mainly stringencies. The Dalil's areas where it differs with the Mu'tamad will be in stringency. So the sutra, not having a sutra in front of it is a nullifier. If someone goes in front of it, like it must be done, right? That's a stringency. Someone changing postures in the salah or leaning against something without excuse is a nullifier of salah, right? That's not Mu'tamad, that's a stringency. Whereas al-Hajjawi, his 33 issues of differing comes down on the side of more leniencies. Right? So Shaikh Muhammad Ar-Rashid, having studied both texts, has this understanding of them, where he has this appreciation of them. Now, I used to think that there wasn't really a big footprint of the Zad and the Rawd in Rif Dimashq. However, Shaykh Abdullah Badran, Hafizullah, he said to me that no, most of what my dad, which is Imam Ismail Badran, most of his masails that he's built are built coming from Rawd al-Murbi'. Like he refers to it often. Like that's what he refers to most of the time. Because I was asking him, Dalil, should I commit this to memory, that to memory? He's like, no. Memorize the Rawd and the Zad, the underlying text. And then I said to him, so I should memorize the Zad and then, the Rawd I refer to reference. No, memorize them both.
Allahu Akbar.
Because I'm thinking maybe there's a way to get out of this. I can try to get out of this. Memorize the Zad. I'm already, so much of the way through it. I just memorized that, and then use the road as my reference and my also. So no, memorize both. So, memorize both, inshallah.
It's a big book.
Subhanallah, man.
700 pages?
About 879 the printing I've got. It's like, okay, well, we got to figure something out. So this is what we've been doing. So the Shaykh Muhammad Ahmad Ar-Rashid's ability to go through that kitab means that there's a previous footprint that had been there. And that other sheikhs have gone through it. Although it's not their main preferred text, and most of the commentaries coming out of there are on the Dalil or something connected to the Dalil, there are scholars that have gone through the Zad and the Road. It's just not used as the preferred text. And so the sheikh has the ability to join between both, although his preferred curriculum that he uses that, and that's the text that he loves.
And then I'd like to shed light on something here. Now, because we're discussing your particular study here about the Manar and the Dalil, for the Shamis, these are the books, or this is the book you study for ifta. Now, for the ones in Egypt or in Arabia, it will be the Zad and the Raud. Now, the reason why I wanted to mention this is because this is not merely studying a text with a teacher, but there's a very big goal behind this, basically, which is to achieve through ifta or to review one's ifta and the like. So if you could maybe shed a little light on that, why there's a specific purpose with these texts.
So when you look at these kutub, your point, so for example, what I did is I did the Umda, and then I did the Al-Udda Sharh Al-Umda. And that helps you unpack the Umda text. Then from there, you look at the Muqni'. So I went through the Muqni'. And from the Muqni', then you step down to the Zad and you look at the Road for its reference work. Then you go to the Kafi. You study the Kafi. And the Kafi takes you through. Now, each text has its own thing. So the Umda introduces you to just the fiqh of what it is. This is the fiqh. This is everything. You must have this. Al-Udda says, here are the evidences and some of the usuli reasoning behind it, which Baha'u'ddin al-Maqdisi rahimahullah, he died 624. He's the commentary. He's the first cousin of Imam Wafd ibn Qudamah, who writes this text. Then after this, you have the Muqni'. But the Muqni' is devoid of evidence. The Muqni' has instead the ta'lil and some of the reasoning and understanding. Right? The reasoning and understanding. So first you're studying the Umda, which is full with, it has like evidences for each mas'ala. And then you're looking at the Udda, which explains some of the reasoning. The Muqni' now takes away the evidences. Takes away all the evidences and gives you one qawl or two qawls in the madhab. This is what you should be working with, everything else, because it's now you're learning how to think in that fashion. Initially, here's what you need to do, here's your evidence, because that's what you want to understand in the beginning. Here's your fiqh, here's your evidence. Okay, now you step up, okay, here's some of the thinking. You come to the Kafi now, so you have beginning, Umda, you have your intermediate, beginning intermediate, which is the Muqni', and then your advanced intermediate, which is the Kafi, which now we're going to give you the understanding, but also the evidences for reasoning through the understanding. Why do we understand this evidence means this? Why does this mean this in this fashion? So I had used the Kafi for my understanding for building my usul on. So in the goal of achieving ifta, for building my usul, this is the methodology that I use, along with the usul text we study, like we did the Road al-Nadhr, this, and then we used the Bulbul, the Mukhtasar, which is Al-Tufi's Mukhtasar of it, and then his commentary notes on it for discussion around the matters. But this is what we used, and Abdul Qadir Badran's discussion, right? Then you have Mukhtasar Tahrir, but that came later for me. This was the main thing that we used. So this is the methodology that we used for doing this. So then when I come to Shaykh Abu Anas Muhammad Ahmad Ar-Rashid, the goal now is, okay, now we're in our finishing phase. And our finishing phase is now understanding to be able to answer questions confidently for ifta, to be able to answer issues and queries that have already been settled. And you know what the bottom line is on the matter. So we're now discussing what is the bottom line. How do we understand how to reach the bottom line? Because sometimes what you'll find is a text will have, for example, al-Muqni' will have many aqwa. Like, because the point is to introduce these things. Introduces it. So you have 2, 3, 4 aqwa.
Wow.
And the same thing in al-Mughni, 2, 3, 4 aqwa in a situation. Okay, how do you get to the bottom of what the final ruling is?
Wow.
Because that's the mu'tamid. What is the mu'tamid? What's the final ruling? Okay, how do you find it? Well, sometimes you can find it through texts where you're like, okay, well, whatever Majduddin ibn Taymiyyah and Muwaffiq ibn Qudama have agreed upon, that's the mu'tamid. Okay, what about things that aren't mentioned in that kitab, like later? Okay, all right, well then, whatever is in the iqna' and the muntaha is agreed upon, and when they differ, you go with the muntaha. Okay, what if it's not mentioned there? Is issues to come after? Okay, then whatever is, like, you can follow that train of thinking when Bahuti and Al-Karmi, whatever they've differed, whatever they agree on, that's the mu'tamid. If they differ, it's Bahuti. Got it. And then within Bahuti's books, okay, the final statement is in Daqa'iq ul-Nuha. Got it. Right? That's the order of consideration of his rulings, where you're going to find the bottom line, the final answer. But then you'll get situations to where there are numerous aqwal, and the Manar us-Sabil, Imam Ibrahim al-Dawayan, rahimahullah, he'll give like a number of aqwal, and he won't tell you what the bottom line is. So often, Shaykh Muhammad Ahmad Ar-Rashid, rahimahullah, would say, so what's the final ruling? And we'd be like, where would we go to find the final ruling? Say, okay, would we go back to Dalil, ut-Talib or Muntaha? He said, you could. He says, you could do that. He says, or sometimes you might be able to find the indicator in this text here. It's like, so how do you find the indicators? What are the indicators of what the final ruling is? So, okay. So it says, if you see the statement anhu, Imam Ahmad has like another qawl, right? That's the sign that it's another ruling.
Right.
But it's not the mu'tamid. Mu'tamid usually gets stated here. Like, now sometimes it's obvious where someone say, wal madhabu, or was sahihu, the madhab is this, the sahih is this. But then sometimes it'll be more than one qawl where you have other indicators in the text. Now you could go back to the other books you might have to do some additional research and digging to get to the bottom line. But sometimes it's indicated in the text, right? And so the author, Manar us-Sabil, has indicators in the text where you've got to look. So it's teaching you to understand where things are found, because again, nothing that these authors have put in the text is extraneous. It all has purpose. It's all there. It's been put in there on purpose, that this goes with this and this goes with that. It's been put there for your use to simplify things for you.
Right. So they're purposely written in this fashion. They're purposely placed in a particular level. So they're not just randomly written as a fiqh text.
No, there's purposes behind it. And sometimes what will happen as well is they'll tell you in the introduction what they're doing. So Imam Bahauddin al-Maqdisi rahimahullah tells you in the introduction of the Al-Udda Sharh Umda, this is what we're looking to do.
Subhanallah.
This is what we're trying to do, and this is why we're doing this. And when we say our Shaykh, I mean my first cousin, so and so, he tells you who is my Shaykh. Some kutub they won't, because they count on you to understand. When we use the text Al-Qadi, up until the 800s means Al-Qadi Abu Ya'la, rahimahullah. But if it's after that, it means Alauddin al-Mardawi, who dies 885. But that's up to the teacher to unpack that. Shaykh Mashakhina, which is used by Al-Lubadi and others. When you hear Shaykh Mashakhina, that means Hasan al-Shati. That's him. That's him. Al-Musannif is Al-Karmi. Right? So certain things okay, this is this person. Right? So it's done to save space.
Right.
But it's also done as coding as well, because if you don't understand what this is, you shouldn't be studying this. If you don't know this, you shouldn't be studying this.
Right.
And if the person teaching you doesn't know this, it's proof that they're not qualified. It's also a fail-safe device to make sure that you don't belong in this area. This isn't your field. Because every field, whether it's in the shop or in other areas, has what's called shop talk. And so we use certain technical language. We use certain terms that only the people being addressed understand. Right. So the Shaykh Ahmad Ar-Rashid unpacked a lot of these things and also indicated other more deeper beneficial things within each text. Now, I wasn't able to get through all of the old with him because rahimahullah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought him home. But I was able to get through some of it, and also I was able to make notes and also remember back to what he taught us of Manar us-Sabil, and so much of it is transferable, although he taught each text differently. So the Manar us-Sabil, the Masail had to be unpacked, and he had to often explain where the Mu'tam is found. Where Ar-Rawd al-Murbi', one of its excellences is that you don't have to wonder where it's found.
Wow, subhanAllah.
Because Al-Buhuti, who is referred to as later authors as Tajuddin, because he actually didn't have a laqab. He didn't have a laqab. He was known as Abu Sa'adat. This was his kunya. But his laqab that later scholars call him is Tajuddin, the crown of the religion, because of his level of tahqiq and his tafheem of things in the deen.
And if I may add one small note, Sheikh, when you were referencing in regard to these books and finding the mu'tamad now, we also make clear that this is not the goal for the common people. They would just learn a text on ibadat and mu'amalat that is already mu'tamad. But then as you advance in ilm, as you're studying ifta and tafaqquh to become a mufti or faqih, this is when you flesh out these matters of the madhab, right?
This is correct. So a person from the common folk, it's enough for them. So for example, recently after the destruction that had happened in Rif Dimashq between the Mujahideen and the Daesh groups in the government, things have settled down in other parts of Rif Dimashq to where other masajid are starting to open back up. And one of the common customs that they have in Rif Dimashq is teaching Badayat al-Abid by al-Ba'ali, rahimahullah, who dies in 1192. That's a standard text.
Right.
So it takes you to the 5 pillars and also the book of Jihad, which came in handy given the circumstances of Rif Dimashq. But interestingly enough, he puts the 5 pillars in there, and then he puts Kitab al-Jihad in there as well. And then Akhsar al-Mukhtasarat is there, and they often use Abdul Qadir Badran. They use his commentary, or Mukhtasar al-Ifadat. Like those are the ones, because the Mukhtasar al-Ifadat by al-Balbani is composed of like 4 corners or 4 sides. So the first one is the basic things that someone should know of their usul-ud-din, and then the i'tiqad al-mufassal. So you have your usul-ud-din, the mujmal things, the 3 things. Allah is Lord, Risala, Ba'd al-Maut, and then he unpacks it as the mufassal, the i'tiqad al-mufassal. Then after that, you have your tasawwuf. There's that. And he goes into that. Then after that, you have your fiqh. And so he goes into the fiqh. You go through all the pillars and the stuff that you need to know for your mu'amalat, your basic mu'amalat. And then you have your adab. and akhlaq and some of the things that he believed would be beneficial and useful. He even touches on a few like tajweed rulings as well under fiqh. So he touches on some of these things. So these kutub start to be taught again in Ad-Dumi again. Bidayat al-Abid, Ash-Shar, the Akhsar Mukhtasarat, Mukhtasar Ifadat, the Ajwiba, also known as Mukhtasar al-Dalil, which is still taught in Palestine, which again was before I did the Umda was that.
Yes.
I forgot to mention. Before I did the Umda was that, which is basic. It takes you from the Book of Waters all the way up until Hajj. So these very simple texts, which are for the most part mu'tamid, but might have one or two stringencies, but they're imperceptible. They're imperceptible to the common folk, because the common folk, I just need to do this. And the interesting thing is those stringencies, most of the common folk wouldn't abide by those anyway. They just remember the rest of the text. They're not going to know that, hey, this is this. Like you won't find Rif Damashq or other areas where people are like, yeah, if you don't have a sutra, the salah is nullified. They don't. They don't.
And there's so few of those, right? Like that there's so few that you barely even notice it. Yeah,
there's like, for example, in the Ajwiba, there's like 3 areas that are non-mu'tamid, like 3. And that's it.
No,
that's it. And but that's because Sheikh Musa al-Qaddumi, rahimahullah, he dies 1336. He has the right to follow that stringency. He's a mujtahid in his own right, and he's following al-Karmi, because you have to remember that Ajwiba is the mukhtasar of the Dalil. It's the mukhtasar of the Dalil, right? But the notes and where I studied it is I used Bahuti's notes, and we were taught through Bahuti's notes. So we were kind of doing like Zad. We kind of treated we kind of Zadized it, if you can use that expression. We kind of made it Zad by doing that, because if you notice when we studied through the notes, that's all of what I built the understanding on. So we're kind of using Bahuti as our notes, not Karmi, not the others. So we kind of use that as a note. But that's what the common folk, the awam, are using. They're not getting into these detailed matters.
Right.
But when the common folk then have questions, then there need to be people that can answer those questions. And you need to be able to get to the bottom line of, okay, that's this ruling. But in instances where you cannot implement the mu'tamid because there are social conditions or there are other issues, okay, what do you do when that happens? Well, you need to know what to fall back on in that circumstance. Or when fuqaha differ on a topic. Okay, why have they differed? Why has this happened? Right? So you'll go to certain places and you'll see that the people's amal is other than the mu'tamid. Why is the amal other than the mu'tamid? So, well, there's been some incident or something that occurred where we could not do it in that fashion. So this became the aada, the custom of the people. And so the madhab's implementation was then based upon this. And no one batted an eye. No one considered anything, different to this. And they just carried on like normal. And no one thought anything different, right? And no one knows anything different. So there'll be differences like that where you need to understand some of these aqwal where you can't implement the mu'tamid because of this issue, right? Or you're not able to because of this issue. Or you find that the people are doing the opposite of the mu'tamid because there's an aada. And you need to understand that. Otherwise, you'll be doing inkar on people because, hey, you're supposed to be following the, dependent upon ruling. It's like you're going to do inkar upon everybody. It's like, well, no, there's a reason why everyone has this particular maslak. Why has this happened? And how has it happened? Okay, so how do you assist people in that regard? And then when people come to you for marriage, divorce, advice, inheritance law advice, other things, you need to be able to answer these, but you can't answer these questions without understanding the metan. And if people ask you follow-up questions as well, you can't answer those questions unless you understand the text and the reasoning behind the text, the reasoning behind why the people of the province or this area are upon this. So the people of Rif Dimashq, there'll be some differences between them and, say, the people of Anbar province or Basra province. They're all Hanabila, but there's some, or the Turbatijon or Arabia, the Khalij. There's slight, though there will be differences between them. So an example of that would be this. In the Gulf, the general aada, the custom for face covering for women is that it's black. That's associated as, all black is associated as an aada, as the custom for ladies.
Right.
But in Rif Dimashq, when ladies are covered completely, there'll be color. It won't be black. It'll be green or blue or other things. And they won't have the face covering won't be a pullover face covering like the niqab. Instead, it might be one that's a pull across, a snap across, or something like that. These types of things are aada, that you're implementing these same things, but how and why, how this comes about is slightly different. Another example is with respect to the qullatain, right? The amount of water that's tahur that will be unaffected. Right, we've learned 216, but Rif Dimashq, they have a slightly stricter position because it's all about converting the Shari measurements to the measurements we're using now, and there's some slight difference about what might constitute a ritl or ratl, like what constitutes that, using the metric system and other things. So I've learned that 48 miles and more is for the musafa of qasr. That's what I've learned. That's what I know. That's what I teach. But speaking with Sheikh Abdullah Bidran and others, I know my father said it's 51. It's like, okay, why? Because of how they understand the conversion rate. So there's some of that and slight ijtihad. And so for them, it's like, instead of 216, it's like 194, 195 liters. So it's like, well, why? Because of the stringency on certain issues of how things are converted. And it has to do with understanding the data and its conversion. So understanding that so that you're not doing in-car where it shouldn't be done, where you're not condemning where it shouldn't be done, understanding these slight differences and why they happen and why these issues come about and why these preferences were established. Once you grasp that, then you can get on with the business, because there's a lot of people, the reason why they don't progress is they spend so much time arguing about what's different they never get to what's agreed upon. By understanding what's agreed upon first, what's established,
right,
then you can start to discuss, okay, why do people differ? What is their evidence? Because there's more than just this ayah or this hadith. It's this hadith is abrogated by this hadith, or this ayah abrogates this hadith, or this hadith. There are some ahadith that we don't act on and they're not abrogated, they're not abrogating, but they're prevailed upon by other ahadith. But they're not abrogated. They're just that there's about 4 ahadith that the first 3 generations, you look at their imams and such, they don't practice upon them. And they're sahih. So it's important to understand why. Well, because there's other ahadith that predominate over these. There's other evidences that predominate over these, which then brings you to the issue of usul.